So welcome to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the GCSE Maths past paper of June 2024, Foundation Tier, Paper 2, which is a calculator paper. Now before we get started working through this paper, a little reminder that I'll include a question breakdown in the description below, so if you get stuck on a particular question you can see what topic it relates to, and that might help you with your revision, whether to revise that topic or maybe look back at your notes. And also include a link to the 162 Maths contents page, which gives you easy access to video lessons which goes through all the topics in great detail, along with topic tests, audits and other exam paper walkthroughs. So let's get started on question 1. So question 1a says write 0.27 as a fraction. So for this, if we copy the set of digits after the decimal point, which is 27, then have a 1, and then we've got two numbers after the decimal points. We had two zeros, and then we just need to check, can we simplify this? No, we can't. So the answer is 27 over 100. Then for 1b, it says write 2/5 as a decimal. So again, if you don't know what this is, if we use division, so we're looking 5s into 2 goes none. Write a decimal point, carry the 2. How many 5s go into 20? That's going to be 4. So the answer is 0.4. Alternately, what you could do is turn the 5 into a 10. So then we multiply this number by 2. So we multiply the top number by 2, in which we get 4 over 10, which is 0.4. Then for 1c, it says write 0.35 as a percentage. Well, if we follow the same concept of writing this as a fraction, then we end up with 35 over 100, which equates to 35%. Moving on to question 2a, it says simplify fully x plus 4x. So we just need to collect the x's together, in which we end up with 5x. Then for 2b, it says simplify fully 5 times 2w, so we multiply the numbers together, so we get 10w. And then for 2c, it says simplify 2m divided by m. Well, if we write that as a fraction, the m's cancel out, leaving us with just the 2. And then finally for 2d, we get simplify y times y times y, which gives me an answer of y cubed. Moving on to question 3, it says here is a quadrilateral. It says write down the letter of the obtuse angle. Now, an obtuse angle is an angle that is between 90 and 180, in which that angle there is going to be C. Then it says write down the letter of the acute angle. Now, acute angle is basically an angle that is less than 90 degrees. And that is going to be angles A or D. Then for question 3, it says how many lines of symmetry does this shape have? Well, now looking back at it, what you should be able to note is that it's got no lines of symmetry. Then moving on to question 4a, it says 1 lettuce costs £1.29. How much will 7 lettuce cost? So what we need to do is 1.29 multiplied by 7. So if I do £1.29 multiplied by 7, 7 times 9 is 63. 2 times 7 is 14, plus the 6 gives us 2 to carry, and 7 times 1 is 7, plus the 2 gives us an answer of £9.03. Then for question 4b, it says 5 cucumbers cost £6.40 in total. How much would 2 cucumbers cost? So what we need to do is divide £6.40 by 5 to work out the price of 1 cucumber. So we've got 5s into 6 go 1, remainder 1. 5s into 14 go 2, remainder 4. And 5s go into 40 8 times. So 1 cucumber costs £1.28. If I then multiply that by 2, I get an answer of £2.56. Moving on to question 5, it says a company sells 3 types of bottle. The pictogram shows how many bottles they sold in 1 week, and 1 full square with little 4 rectangles equates to 20 bottles. So what we know then is 1 little box is going to equal 5. It then says for 5a, the company sold more plastic bottles than glass bottles, but how many more? So let's have a look. So we've got 20 for plastic, we've got 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. For glass, we've got a total of 40, and for steel, we're going to have a total of 125. So to work out the difference, we just need to do 100 minus 40, which gives me an answer of 60. Then for 5b, it says the company sells steel bottles for £17.50. Work out the total amount of money made from selling the steel bottles this week. So for this, what we need to do is look at how many steel bottles we sold, which was 125, and we need to multiply that by £17.50. So we just plug that straight into our calculator, in which you should have an answer of £2,187.50. Moving on to question 6, it says shape ABCDE is drawn on a centimetre grid, and it says asks us to complete the statement. So AB to what is in the ratio of 5:1. So what line is 5 times as small as AB? And so the answer we want to write then is DC. Now you could also get away with saying that, or no, you can't say ED, simply because that's one diagonal length, and using Pythagoras that is not going to be allowed. So we can't write ED or DE. It's got to be DC, or you can write it as CD. So any of those letters combinations would be fine. Then for 6b, it says on this centimetre grid, draw a rectangle with the same area as shape ABCD. Now E, so looking at this, if we count up the area, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we've got a total area of 10. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply together give you 10. So I could either draw a 2 by 5 grid, or I could draw a 10 by 1. And I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we've definitely got room for 10. Again, you need to make sure that you're using a ruler for this. I'm just saving a bit of time, in which you can either draw a 10 by 1, or you could draw a 5 by 2. And I would say those two are probably the most common answers. No need to go rogue and go for decimal. Any of those two rectangles will be absolutely fine. Now moving on to question 7, it says use a ruler for this question. Here is an accurate drawing of an equilateral triangle. And it says by measuring the sides, work out the perimeter of the triangle. Now for this, depending on your copy of this particular question, if you're working on A5, that's going to be slightly different. If you're working on A4, which is the official size of the exam paper, then that will be in line with the mark scheme. Now, for this, what you need to do is you need to measure one of the lengths of the triangle. So measure this, and then what we then need to do is just multiply the answer by 3. Now if you're working on A4, any answer of 21.6 to 22.8 centimeters, if you're working in centimeters, will be allowed. Any answer of 216 to 228 millimeters if you're working in millimeters, and they'll also accept a inches answers of 8.4 to 9 inches. And again, because it says state your units, you need to make sure that you do state your units along with your numerical answer. Moving on to question 8, it says there are 56 cubes in a box. The cubes are green, red, blue or white. 17 of the cubes are green, and there are an equal number of red, blue, white cubes. How many red cubes are in the box for question 8a? So for this, what we need to do is we need to subtract these two numbers. So I've got 56 minus 17, which gives me an answer of 13. So that means, and then, sorry, of 39 rather. So from this, what we then need to do is divide that by 3, in which therefore we get the answer of 13. So we have 13 red, 13 blue, and 13 white. And because the question is just asking for red cubes, we just need to give the answer of 13. Moving on to question 8b, it says 24 more cubes are added to the box. A cube is picked at random and the probability that the cube is green is 0.4. How many of the 24 cubes are added to the green box? So for this, if I write down how many there were of each colour to start with, and we've got the total. So here I've got 17, 13, 13 and 13, and that gives us a total of 56. Now what we then got is we then add 24 cubes, which gives me 80. Now 0.4 of 80 is the number of green cubes. So if I type that into my calculator, I get an answer of 32. And so all the question's asking me is how many green cubes are added. So if I compare these two numbers here, I do 32 minus 17, which gives me an answer of 15. Moving on to question 9, it says that an electric car uses 1 unit of electricity to travel 3 miles. 1 unit of electricity costs 50 pence. Work out the cost of electricity in pounds to travel 240 miles. So for this, what we need to do is we need to work out how many 3 miles go into 270. So if I do 270 divided by 3, I get an answer of, let me just type that in to my calculator now just to make sure. We get an answer of 90, and then all I then need to do is multiply that by 0.5, which gives me an answer of £45. Moving on to question 10a, it says Lima buys 5 meters of linen at £8.50 per meter. She also buys 5 meters of cotton and the total cost is £38. What is the cost of 1 meter of cotton? So let's have a look at this. So 2 meters of linen. So in terms of the linen, that's going to be 2 times £8.50, which gives me a cost of £17. So then the money spent on the cotton is going to be £38 minus 17, and if I type that into my calculator I get an answer of £21. And then we know that that pays for 5 meters, so 5 meters equals £21. So then the cost per meter, now because we're doing cost per meter, what we need to do is have the cost on the top divided by 5, and if I type that all into my calculator I get an answer of £4.20 per meter, and there is my answer for that. Now moving on to question 10b, it says buttons cost 65 pence each. The greatest number of buttons Lima can buy with £5 is 7. She says the greatest number of buttons I can buy with £10 is 14 because £10 is double of £5. Is she correct? So for this, what we need to do is we need to divide £10 by 65 pence. Now all we need to do when we're doing this into our calculator is just make sure that our money amounts are in the same units. So we do 10 divided by 0.65, and if I type that into my calculator I get an answer of 15.3846, which rounds down to 15 buttons. Now if we then go back to Lima's claim that the greatest number of buttons she can buy is 14, well the answer is no, and you want to write something along the lines of this as you're working out, and that will be good enough for the 2 marks. Moving on to question 11, it says here is a table of values for the equation of 3x plus 1. Draw the graph of y equals 3x for the values of 1 to 4. So what we need to do is we need to plot these coordinates here on the graph and join them up with a straight line. So I've got 1, 4, which is here. I've got 2, 7, which is there. 3, 10, which is there. And 4, 13, which is going to be there. And then all I then need to do is very carefully with a ruler is join those points up. Now if I just match this up with the 2 exact points, then what I should get is a line that goes through this. Now you just need to make sure that your line goes through at least up to 1 and 4. So you need to make sure that it starts at a minimum here and ends at a minimum here, but I would say just go right to the edge of the graphs. It then says work out the value of y when x is 2.5. So for this what we need to do is we need to find 2.5 on the x-axis, which is just up here, and then what you then need to do is just draw a straight vertical line till it hits that point and then just go across, and I make that value to be around 8.5. Moving on to question 12, it says that a code has 5 different digits written in order, starting with the smallest. The last digit is the only square number, and the middle digit is the only even number. And it says work out the code. So here, out of this, in terms of the only square number, well, the square numbers that are single digits are 1, 4, and 9. Now, if the numbers are going in order of size and we've got 5 numbers to choose from, it's going to be 9. That's going to be our last number. It also then says the middle digit is the only even answer, which means it can't be 4, and obviously it's not going to be 1. So then this is going to be, well, it can't be 4, so we're either looking at 2, 4, 6, and 8, in which then the last digit is the only square number, so there is no other 9, so it must be a 6. This therefore must be a 7, and then all we're looking for is these first 2 digits to be odd numbers. And it says we can't use any duplicates because they do need to be different, so the only possible combination it can be is 3, 5, 6, 7, 9. Moving on to question 13, it says 4 numbers have a mean of 10. 3 of the numbers are 5, 8, and 9. Work out the other numbers. So if you think about the mean is the total of the numbers divided by how many numbers we've got. So what we're looking for is the total divided by 4 equals 10. Now if I take the 4 over, it basically tells me that the total sum of all the numbers needs to add up to 40. So if I add these numbers up, 5 plus 8 plus 9, that gives me an answer of 22. So our last number must be the difference between 40 and 22. So here if I do 40 minus 22 gives me an answer of 18. Moving on to question 14.8, it says rearrange D equals H minus 4 to make H the subject. So what I'm wanting is H to be by itself. So what do I need to get rid of the 4? How do I get rid of the 4? Do the opposite by adding 4. So H equals D plus 4. So all I need to write is D plus 4. Or you could write 4 plus D. That would also be absolutely fine. For question 14b, it says rearrange P equals W over 3 to make W the subject. So I just need to get rid of that 3. What's the 3 doing? Dividing. So to get rid of it, I need to multiply. So W is going to equal 3P. For question 15, it says a linear sequence begins 2, 5, 8, and 11. Work out an expression for the nth term. So again, when you're working out the nth term of a linear sequence, first of all, you want to find out the difference between the numbers. So here we've got a difference of positive 3. So that means that 3n is going to be in the formula. Then to find what number we add to that, all we then need to do is work out how do we get the difference to the first number, which is 2. So what do I need to do to 3 to get 2? Well, I need to take away 1. So my nth term is going to be 3n minus 1. Moving on to question 16, it says the diagram shows a circle with centre O and 3 straight lines. One word is a word to describe each of the shaded regions. Choose from one of the other. So region A is going to be a segment. Region B is a sector. And they're the only 2 regions that we need to label. Then says for question 17, work out the column vectors of 1, 2, plus 4, 6. Now to do this, all we need to do is just simply add the top numbers and add the bottom numbers. I don't know why I keep doing that sometimes. And we need to do 2 plus 6. So 1 plus 4 is 5 and 2 plus 6 is 8. So the column vector answer is going to be 5, 8. Moving on to question 18, it says bag A and bag B contain counters. Bag A is a quarter of them red and the rest is blue, and bag B has 3 of them are white and 2 are green. And the question says complete the tree diagram. So looking at bag A, we've got the probability of selecting a red is going to be a quarter. So that means what fraction is left? Well, that's going to be 3/4. For bag B, we've got a total of 5. So writing fractions, what's the probability of selecting a white? Well, that's going to be 3/5. And what's the probability of selecting a green is going to be 2/5. and then I just need to repeat those fractions, and there is my completed probability tree. It then says one counter is chosen at random from each bag. Work out the probability that is red, or one is red and one is white. Now for this, what we're looking for is the probability of it being red and white. So the only route we can go for red and white is this route here and this route here. So the probabilities I need to multiply are 1/4 and 3/5. So if I multiply 1/4 times 3/5, and to multiply fractions we just multiply the numerators together. So 1 times 3 is 3 and 4 times 5 is 20. Can we simplify that fraction? No, we can't, so we just leave it as 3/20. Moving on to question 19, it says use trigonometry to work out the value of x. Now for this, what we need to do is first of all is label the parts of the triangle. So we've got theta equals 24, we've got the opposite which equals x, and the hypotenuse which equals 31. So using trigonometry, we've got SOHCAHTOA. Which trig ratio uses O and H? That's going to be sine. So we've got sine theta equals O over H. So substituting numbers in, we get sine 24 equals x over 31. Take the 31 over, so we get 31 multiplied by sine 24. Now if I type that all into my calculator, I get an answer of, and let's just type that in, 31 times sine 24, in which I get an answer of 12.6088 blah blah blah, and I just want to round that up, so I'm going to call it 12.6, and that's to 1 decimal place. Now depending on your rounding, they would accept any answer between 12.6 and 12.61. Moving on to our next question, which is question 20. It says the mass of an iceberg is 2.2 million kilograms, and it says the value has a 12% reduction from its original mass of the iceberg. Work out the original mass of the iceberg. Now this is a reverse percentage question. So we take the new weight, which is 2.2 million, and just making sure that we've got the right number of zeros. We have, and here we want to divide. Now if we want a 12% reduction, we would multiply by 0.88, because remember we always start with 100%. Minus 12% gives me 88%, and that as a decimal multiplier is 0.88. Now because I want the original, I've got to divide by 0.88, and if I type that into my calculator, I get an answer of 2.5 million. Now all that's left for me to then do is convert this into standard form, and that's going to be 2.5 multiplied by 10 to the power of 6. Moving on to question 21, it says that a chef has a tub of blueberries. She wants to use all the blueberries. She puts the same number of blueberries on each dessert, and the formula of D equals K over B, where D is the number of desserts and B is the number of blueberries of each dessert. The question says, what does the constant K represent? And we need to tick the right box for this one. Now in this particular formula, the K represents the number of blueberries in the tub. Then from the next question, it then says complete the table. Well, if we use the information that we are given in terms of the formula, so we've got D equals K over B. Now using this information here, we can then work out what K is. So we've got 120 equals K over 2. And then to find out what K is, we take the 2 over. So 120 times 2 equals K. So K equals 240. Now if I substitute that into the formula, I've got D equals 240 divided by K. Now to find this value here, what I need to do is substitute the value of B equals 6. So from, I don't know why I've got K there, that should be a B. So here I swap B for 6. So for this, I'm going to get 240 divided by 6, which gives me an answer of 30. or 40 rather. Then for this number here, this time what we're doing is we know that D equals 30. So if I then substitute into the formula of D equals 240 divided by B, I've got 30 equals 240 divided by B. So what divided by, to work out B, what I've got to do then is, not do it off the screen, is then do 240 divided by 30, which gives me an answer of 80. So of 8 rather. And so that missing number there is going to be 8. Quite stingy for 2 marks, I would say, that question, to be honest. Moving on to question 22, it says that a fair spinner has 6 equal sections, each of the sections with the number 5, 6, 7, 8. Each number appears at least once. The probability of an even number is equal to the probability of a 7. Work out the probability of getting a 5. You may use a blank spinner to help you. So if we look at the actual information that is written, so we've got a fair spinner with 6 equal sections, and we've either got to use 5, 6, 7 or 8. Now the probability of getting an even number, which is 6 and 8, equals the number of 7s. So if we have 2 7s, and it says that each number appears at least once. So if we've got 2 7s, that means that we've then got to have 2 even numbers. Now the only even numbers we've got is 6 and 8, and we've got to use one of each. So there we've got 6 and 7, meaning that the other 2 sides must be 2 5s. So there is my completed spinner, and it says work out the probability of getting a 5. Well, out of the 6 sides, how many of them are 5? Well, that's going to be 2 out of 6 sections. So I can either write my fraction as either 2/6 or I can write it as a third. For question 22b, it says a different spinner has 10 sections, each labelled A, B, C or D. Give one reason why there must be a mistake in the table. Well, because the events are exhaustive of A, B, C and D, like there's no other options, all of these probabilities must add up to 1, which if we do 0.1 plus 0.5 plus 0.2 plus 0.3 gives me a total of 1.1. And you should say something along the lines of that these probabilities should add up to 1, not 1.1. So definitely a mistake has been made there. Moving on to question 23a, it says here is a sketch of a graph of y equals minus 2x plus 6, and it says complete the coordinates for C and D. So at C, what we know is that x equals 0. So if I substitute x equals 0 into the equation, what I end up is with y equals minus 2 times 0 is 0 plus 6. So y equals 6. So the coordinate of C is going to be 0, 6. Then for D, what I know is that y equals 0. So if I substitute y equals 0 into the equation, I get 0 equals minus 2x plus 6. And I just need to solve this equation. So if I take the 6 over, I end up with minus 6 equals minus 2x. And what times minus 2 gives you minus 6? X equals 3. So the coordinate of D is going to be 3, 0. And there are my 2 coordinates. So you need to write 6 and 3. Then for question 23b, it says here is a sketch of a quadratic graph. Complete the following statements. The value of the y-intercept is, and the y-intercept is going to be 5. And it says the x-coordinate of the turning point T is at this point here. Now, at this point here, that is the middle between minus 2 and 8. So looking at the distance between those two, that's a value of 10. So this distance here must be plus 5. And what's minus 2 plus 5? That's going to give me an answer of 3. Moving on to question 24, it says Archie flips a bias coin 200 times. Here are some information about the outcomes after 50 flips. What work out the best estimate for the probability of flipping ahead. Give you a reason for your answer. Now for this is to do with relative frequency, and the most accurate probability is the one where you're using the most trials. So the most accurate probability is going to be 52 over 200. Now again, if you want to simplify that, that's going to be 26 over 100, which is 13 over 50, which is, any of those fractions will be fine. And the reason for that is because you've got the one with the most trials. Again, a very, very popular relative frequency question, that one. Then moving on to question 25, it says a line is sprinting in a straight line away from its den. The graph shows the line's distance from the den. The question is asking us to work out the speed of the line in meters per second. So for this, what we know is that speed is equal to distance divided by time. So using this formula, what we need to do is we need to work out the distance travelled, which is this point here to this point here, which is going to be around about 120 to 30. So the distance travelled is going to be 120 minus 30, which is 90. And the time it's taken is from 0 to 5. And the time is going to be 5 seconds. So in meters per second, the speed is going to be 90 divided by 5, which gives me an answer of 18 meters per second. And that is the end of this paper.